All right, today we are going to be checking out two fragrances from Afnan's Rare Reef, which is supposed to be a clone of Louis Vuitton's Pacific Chill, or at least an inspiration of it. And we will also be taking a look at Historic Sahara, which is supposed to be a clone of Parfum de Marly's Altair. First up, we'll take a look at Afnan's Rare Reef. And I purchased this for, I think, $40 right when it came out. So hopefully the price will go down at some point for this fragrance. Quick look at the presentation. Here's the box that it comes in. And of course, here is the bottle. This is 100 mLs and it is an extrait de parfum. So what type of fragrance is this? And what are they trying to invoke with this scent? So according to the website, this is basically a fresh, bright, and pure fragrance that's supposed to be a peaceful escape by the ocean, and it's supposed to have green layers that are refreshing and calm. It's supposed to be clean, modern, and beautifully balanced. The perfumer for this fragrance is Lucas Swiezak, who has a lot of fantastic works to his name, including Amouage Reflection Man. All right, let's get into the fragrance here. So I do not think that this is a dupe like a lot of people initially said this was a dupe of Louis Vuitton Pacific Chill. One is it just doesn't smell exactly like it. And two is you don't really need to hire a senior perfumer like Lucas Swiezak to straight up clone another fragrance. All you need to do is just send it off to a machine and you can get something that's really close. I will say that the description from Afnan is pretty good based on the notes. So if we look at the note breakdown, top notes are blackcurrant, orange, citron, mint, coriander, and grapefruit. The mid notes are apricot, basil, rose, violet leaf, and base notes are fig, dates, ambrette, and amberwood. As you can see, it has a lot of citrus notes, and it's going to also have some mint based on the note of mint, and of course blackcurrant, which has some kind of minty undertones to it as well. So the opening of this fragrance is just fantastic to me. It's got a really nice citrus opening. I get a lot of orange, almost an orange peel, some apricot, along with a lot of blackcurrant and mint, and it has a good bit of green underneath it as well. To me, it's not harsh. I don't have one synthetic note that just really sticks out and drowns everything else out. Overall, the opening to me is just fantastic, and this is going to be a great scent for the summer. I do get a little bit of apricot that pops out every now and then, along with some basil, and of course that steady flow of greens and slight mintiness underneath it. And I would say the citruses here are not very soft. They are very punchy and aggressive, really in your face, but not in a harsh, overbearing, or synthetic way. Just really, really good in the opening. Once it dries down, it turns into a lot of ambroxan and musk, with those citruses and greens sort of becoming the supporting notes at this point. Overall, it's a very fresh and energetic scent. And while it's listed as unisex, to me it slightly leans a little bit more to the masculine side. If I were to compare this to Pacific Chill, I would say that the opening is far more aggressive and punchy. The apricot is not quite as pronounced. And it also has a more aggressive and spicy opening that I just don't really get with Pacific Chill. To me, that's just a very light, crisp, airy fragrance, and this is more of a citrus heavy and punchy fragrance with a lot of greens and some mint underneath it. As far as performance on this fragrance, I'm getting about 8 hours out of this. I get good projection for the first couple of hours, and for a price point of 40 bucks, definitely not disappointed with that. All right, next up we are going to be taking a look at Historic Sahara, which is a dupe of Parfum de Marly's Altair. If you're not familiar with that fragrance, it's basically a warm bourbon vanilla, slightly resinous, sweet cinnamon praline fragrance that has a nice masculine edge to it. So here's the presentation. Here is the box, and this is the bottle. And this is a 100 ml, and it is also an extrait de parfum. And Afnan describes this basically as a scent that captures the timeless allure of golden dunes and ancient journeys. So let's get into the scent here. So if we look at Afnan's website and take a look at the note breakdown, the top notes are bergamot, cinnamon, and cardamom. And the mid notes are elemi, vanilla, and sugar. And base notes are musk, almond, tonka, wood, praline, and ambroxan. The note breakdown is very similar to Althair, but one prominent note that's missing is orange blossom, which is very prominent in the original Parfum de Marly version. So what I get out of this in the opening is a fragrance that is pretty close to Althair. I think they kind of wanted to do their own thing and branch out just a little bit here, which is similar to Afnan's Rare Reef, although this one is far more close to the original than, say, Rare Reef was to Pacific Chill. So the opening, I do get a very similar orange blossom scent out of it, although it is very quick and subdued, and it is not very overpowering and long lasting like the original. So in the opening I get some orange flower along with some cinnamon and spices. It almost smells kind of like a brown candied sugar in the opening, a little bit differently than the original one from Parfum de Marly. It also has a lot of musk, pralines, and ambroxan under it. It's a very warm, seductive type of fragrance. Overall, I love Althair, and I love fragrances that try to replicate it, and that certainly applies to Historic Sahara, which smells incredible to me. To me, this is very much like a lot of the Althair clones on the market. It has a little bit of a different opening, but once it dries down after about 45 minutes or an hour, it is very, very close to the original. You get that warm spiciness with the tonka bean, vanilla, ambroxan, along with some sweetness underneath that gives it that kind of a masculine edge. This is a perfect fragrance for fall and winter. This is probably not something I would ever wear in the summertime due to the high heat where I live, but definitely going to be something that is used a lot in cooler weather. To me, this is extremely similar to Althair. Outside of that opening, I still get notes of orange blossom, although they're not quite as strong, and they're very short-lived in the opening. So really, to me, the only difference is the first 30 or 45 minutes, especially like the first 15 minutes of the fragrance, is really where I can only tell a big difference between the two. As far as price, I think I paid $45, maybe $50 for this, and I'm sure it will drop because I bought it basically as soon as it came out. But overall, very pleased with this fragrance, and I'm sure I'll get a ton of use out of this during the cooler weather. So as far as performance on this, I get about 8 hours of longevity, and I get a decent amount of projection for about 2 hours out of this. I would say that as far as longevity and projection, I don't get as much out of this as I do the original, but as far as performance for a mid $40 or $50 fragrance, certainly can't really complain about that. Alright guys, that's it. If you like Middle Eastern fragrance reviews, designers, clones, cheapies, etc., do me a solid and hit that like and subscribe button to help the channel grow.